What's up, guys? You're listening to another episode of Selling on Amazon with Andy Isom. We made it to 300 episodes. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about what has changed since the first one. We're going to focus this episode specifically on what has changed related to Amazon. But I do want to just acknowledge here really quickly that this has been a wild journey. Every time I reach a new 100 milestone, like 100 episodes, 200 episodes, 300 episodes, it's crazy to me to think that I'm still here. We're still here. We're still creating content. We're still recording episodes related to helping you guys build your own brand, sell your own products on Amazon. I was just having a podcast interview actually yesterday on someone else's podcast, and I was mentioning that I was approaching 300 episodes, and I was just telling them how crazy it was that there continues to be content to talk about. I always thought when I recorded those first 8 episodes that there would be nothing else really to talk about after those first 8 episodes, that I had covered everything that I could possibly cover related to Amazon. But here we are again, 300 episodes later. We're still going strong. And I've learned, I guess, over these last 3 years, that things are always changing. Strategies are always changing. They're being updated. Features are changing with Amazon. Requirements to be successful are changing. So I want to focus on 5 of those big changes that I've noticed since I started this podcast back in early 2020. The first big change is that Amazon doesn't want to compete with Shopify. Now, I say that with a little bit of hesitation because if we're being really, really honest, absolutely. Amazon wants to compete with everyone. I mean, just like any business wants to compete and be the best in their market, I believe Amazon wants to be the top dog in e-commerce. I mean, they are the top dog right now, but they recognize and respect what Shopify offers to their customers and giving people the ability to create their own e-commerce stores built on Shopify. Back when I first started this podcast, and for the longest time, there was like this huge battle between the two. Like Shopify and Amazon did not play nicely together. But I've seen over time how the relationship has kind of evolved, and I would say improved. When the Buy with Prime button came out that you could install the code into your Shopify website, Shopify came out and said, no, that is explicitly against our terms. You are not allowed to have the Buy with Prime button on your websites. But that actually went away recently. And now they're playing nicely saying, you know what? You can use Buy with Prime. And then on the flip side, Amazon now, with their fleet of vans, trucks, fulfillment vehicles, they're now offering, hey, all of you guys who are selling on Shopify, we will actually be your delivery service for your D2C orders. So even if you sell something to someone through your Shopify website, you can actually ship it to your customer using Amazon fulfillment. So there's a lot of features and updates that have come to Shopify and to Amazon that have tried to kind of mend the relationship. And both sides now are acknowledging like, hey, a lot of people see the value in both platforms. Like us, we sell on Amazon, we sell on our own website using Shopify. And I think that these two companies realize more and more brands are going to do this. More and more brands are going to diversify their, selling platforms, their methods of distribution. And let's see how we can help each other, right? And maybe help each other is like a little too nice of a word to use, but how can we work together on this? At the end of the day, it's in Amazon's best interest and Shopify's best interest that people build and grow e-commerce brands. So if them fighting is making it more difficult for e-commerce owners and brands to grow and scale and flourish, that does no good to them in the long run. So I think they've recognized that, and they're doing things to make it easier to kind of cross promote on both selling platforms. The second big change that I've noticed since I started this podcast 3 years ago is that Amazon wants to handle all of your supply chain. In the past, Amazon was simply a marketplace. It was a website. Then they developed into a fulfillment network where they actually had the warehouses. Now they have the trucks, the vans, the fleets, the airplanes. Gosh, I think they even have airports now, if I read that correctly. They're like a full done for you e-commerce provider, which is really nice, which is why Amazon FBA continues to be one of the best business opportunities the world has ever seen. But Amazon is taking that even one step further. Instead of just saying, oh yeah, we'll accept your inventory and we'll ship it out to customers at FBA. Now they want to be your entire supply chain. They want to provide everything end to end to their sellers, which honestly makes it really nice for sellers. I used to be someone when I first started out. If you guys go back and listen to old episodes, you'll hear me say this. I wasn't a huge fan of putting all my eggs in the Amazon basket, meaning I didn't like the idea of giving Amazon, the freedom to fulfill all the orders and do all the inventory and do all the quality and I do everything. I wanted to keep control, right, of parts of my business and not give Amazon, the leverage to control everything with my business. But the more that I sell and the more that I help people sell and more importantly, I think the more that I help solopreneurs start their brands, meaning this is like a one-man show for a lot of my students, whether it's just a wife or just a husband or someone that's single, someone that's alone. There's a lot of people out there who are starting this business by themselves with no outside help or employees or business partners. And for those people who, again, a lot of them are married, a lot of them have kids, a lot of them have jobs, anything that can make it easier and more efficient for them to manage their business is a win, right? So by Amazon doing full end-to-end supply chain, meaning they have Amazon Global Logistics now, where you can work through Amazon to find a freight forwarder that will pick up your product in China, put it on a plane or a boat, fly it to Amazon's warehouses, clear customs and everything for you, and you don't have to worry about it. There's Amazon warehousing and distribution centers now, upstream warehouses to act as your 3PL, because Amazon FBA warehouses have storage capacity limits, right? Those are the warehouses that fulfill prime same day, next day, or 2-day deliveries to customers. There's dozens of them all over the world, really. But now they have these upstream warehouses acting as that middle storage ground. So you can get product from overseas, store it in AWD warehouses, and then when it's ready to be replenished, it gets sent out to all the FBA warehouses. So at that point, there's really no need for a 3PL. And again, now that Amazon will fulfill your Shopify orders, you can create a Shopify website, do Amazon multi-channel fulfillment, store inventory at AWD, fulfill Shopify orders, fulfill Amazon orders. Amazon will handle your entire supply chain, which again, just makes it so much easier to manage everything all under one roof, all under one platform. And yes, I get it. I'm literally listening to my older self now yelling in my ear saying, all your eggs are in one basket. I understand that. But I'd rather have all my eggs in one basket if that basket is full of a ton of eggs, right? Than having 2 eggs that I'm just carrying around in my hands, if that makes sense. The third thing that I've learned, or big change, I should say, the third big change I've noticed, this is probably the most important one of this podcast episode. Your budget needs to be bigger. You need a bigger budget. Now, my stance on when you need that budget hasn't changed. You don't necessarily need $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in your bank account right now to get started. But your budget, the number that, imaginary number of this is what I'm willing to spend before I ever get a sale or before I ever make $1, that number in your mind needs to be bigger. Back in 2020, when I first started, you could get by with $2,500, $5,000. You could launch a great product. You could get sales. You could start to gain some momentum. You could run some advertising and get your business going. It's just simply not the case anymore. A $5,000 budget or less. Can you sell? Yes, you can. But to have realistic expectations of growing a 6 and 7 figure brand on Amazon, you're going to want to start with more. I've been saying 5 to 10K for years now. You're going to start to hear me in 2024. I think I'm going to just make this pact with myself right now that starting in 2024, I'm going to start saying 10 to 20K. The 5 to 10K start an Amazon brand life, that's going to be coming to a close here. That chapter is coming to an end here in 2023. In 2024, the new motto is 10 to 20K. If you legitimately want to have a good product, you want to have good margins, you want to have the marketing in place, advertising is getting more competitive. It's a fact. It's getting more expensive. It's getting harder to stand out. You got to be better. Now, does that mean you can't do it? You can't be successful? No, you can still be successful. I get messages every single week from followers, listeners, students saying, Andy, new milestone, new record, 20K, 50K, 100K, a million. I just launched and hit 7K. I just launched and sold 115 units. I get these messages every single week. Amazon is not dead. You just have to be better. You just have to be better. Let's go sports. It's like saying, maybe it was easier back in the 70s to make it to the major leagues for baseball or to make it to the NFL. Maybe it was easier. I'm sure it was easier. Population was smaller. There wasn't as much technology, traveling teams, AAU, all these things right now that we have in kids sports today. I would be very confident in saying it is a lot harder now to get to a professional sports league than it was in the 70s. But does that mean that it can't be done? No, it absolutely can be done. Every year there's an MLB draft, an NFL draft, an NBA NBA draft, and kids are getting drafted, making it to the professional leagues. So it still can be done. You can still become a pro at whatever you want to be a pro at, but it's harder. It's just harder because more people have access to more resources. Just like we're thinking about basketball or football or baseball, right? One of the big three sports here in the United States. More kids have easier access to better training, better equipment, better coaching, better teams, right? Better resources to improve their skills. So you just have to be that much better as a kid, as a teen, as a college kid to make it to the next level. But that doesn't mean that you can't make it. So yes, absolutely you can make it. You can make it in this business, and 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now, I still think you'll be able to make it in this business. It's just going to be harder. You just got to be better. You just got to be willing to work harder and execute better. But your budget, really, honestly, your budget plays a big factor in that. If you're doing this on your own and you're trying to do everything yourself, like you don't have a coach, you don't have a mentor, you're not following anything, you don't have help, you don't have employees, you don't have contractors, not hiring people to do photos, not hiring people to run ads, like you're just trying to do everything yourself, you got to either be extremely good at what you do and learn the skills or have the skills to execute, or you got to have the budget to hire the best people to do it for you at a high level. And that costs money. And it's going to cost even more money in the future. Okay, so keep that in mind. Your budget needs to be bigger. Fourth big change, 2 more big changes for you guys here, then we'll wrap it up. Fourth big change that I see since we started this podcast 3 years ago, off Amazon branding will be essential to long-term success. Back in the 2014, 2015, 2017 Amazon, 5 to 10 years ago, Amazon FBA, you didn't have to do anything on social media. In fact, back in the glory days of Amazon, you didn't even have to run ads. Like Amazon PPC wasn't really a thing in 2014. Even back in 2017, 18, 19, it was a thing, but you could be average, not spend that much money, get a bunch of organic sales. You didn't have to post a single thing off of Amazon. Like having an Instagram account for your brand? No way, I ain't spending time on that. I'm wasting my time doing that. I don't need to. Having a YouTube channel, having a blog, doing TikTok, doing a podcast, going to trade shows. You don't have to do any of that 5, 10 years ago on Amazon. But in this new world of Amazon that we're moving into, and I would say that we've kind of been in here for the last year or two, post-COVID era of Amazon FBA, off Amazon branding will be essential, required for long-term success. If you truly want to survive, if you want to thrive, if you want to grow, if you want to scale, if you want to turn this into a 6, 7-figure business, you're going to have to take off Amazon branding very seriously. And by that, I mean creating content on the major social media platforms, on the internet, heck, even off the internet. If you really want to survive, you're going to have to do this because with AI, with graphic design, photo editing, photography, all that is getting so much easier. It's getting so much easier to have amazing photos. It's going to be easier to have great graphics. It's going to be easier to have better listings, optimized listing, and all that stuff. Technology can do all this for you now. So again, everyone's going to look the same. We're all going to look great. Every listing on Amazon is going to look outstanding. It's not going to be like it is even still right now. It's still kind of like this, where it's like, Amazon seller, US seller. You can just pick it easy. I can look at it in half a second and tell you which brands are Chinese brands. It won't be like that. In the future, it will not be like, no one will be able to tell a difference. Everything's going to look top notch. So if you want people to choose you over the Chinese brands, you need to build a brand off of Amazon. People need to know you and have heard about you and seen your name before they ever look for your product on Amazon. So if they're going to look for pillowcases or whatever it is, they had seen a video. Even if they don't follow you, maybe a friend mentioned it or they saw some video somewhere, heard something somewhere on a blog or something. They saw your brand name and they remembered it subconsciously so that when they shop for that pillowcase one day and they see your brand name pop up or your image or whatever, they're like, oh, I've seen that somewhere. And they click on yours. And then obviously they're sold and they end up buying it, hopefully, right? But that's what it's going to that's what it's going to take. It's going to take that. With the rising cost of advertising, the increased competition, you're going to have a presence off of Amazon to improve your chances of competing on Amazon. Guys, this goes for anything. This goes for any business. I don't care if you want to be an online coach, if you want to be a podcaster, sell digital courses, do affiliate marketing. It doesn't matter what the business is. This applies to literally anything. If you want to build a business and do your own thing in this life, be my own boss, that whole jazz, you have to build a brand. You have to build a brand. And that's going to take work and it's going to take consistency and it's going to take time. The last thing, we'll wrap up with this. Last big change I've noticed since starting this podcast back in 2020. Every micro improvement and micro strategy matters. Back in 2020, we didn't have a lot of these brand registry features. Like we didn't have premium A+ content. I'm trying to think. We didn't have brand tailored promotions. We didn't have access to brand analytics. We didn't have customer engagement tool. I mean, these are just a few of the like features and tools and things that they have now to help you improve sales, increase conversion rates, all that jazz. We didn't have all that. But even as that stuff started to kind of come out over the past 3-4 years, it wasn't really that necessary. And I've even told this to my students who come on my weekly Zoom Q&A call. It's like, guys, look, I'll be honest with you. We are kind of complacent a lot of times with our own brand, and we don't do a lot of this stuff like as much as we should. Like I even show people like, here's how to run brand tailored promotions. And I show my screen and it's like, we've run one in the last 6 months when we probably should be running one a week. But I'm just like, yeah, this is how you do it. It's a really cool feature. It's really going to help you get more sales. We don't do it. And I feel kind of guilty whenever I say that. But up until now, we haven't really needed to do all the different things, right? Like having a brand story, something that's like so basic and so simple. It's like, we don't have a brand story. And so again, up until now, you haven't really needed to do all those little things, like all those little micro strategies and micro split testing and brand experiments and all that stuff. But guys, starting today and moving forward into the future, this is going to make a massive difference because there's going to be more competition. There's going to be more people selling it. And like I said, with Chinese brands that are selling on Amazon, they're going to have better photos. They're going to have better listings. All this with AI is going to make it more fuzzy to differentiate Americans from Chinese brands. So every small extra execution that you can implement for your brand and your products will make a big difference. If you're running your brand tailored promotions, if you're doing your premium A+ content, if you're doing videos, if you're testing all the different sponsored display types, if you're doing Amazon DSP, like I understand this sounds overwhelming because it is. It flat out is. There's so many things you could be doing. You could be posting on TikTok and Instagram and have a YouTube channel and have a blog and be posting on LinkedIn and be using influencers and be going to trade shows. Like you could have a full blown like 20 employee type of e-commerce brand, right? In an ideal world, like, yeah, we're selling $50 million a year. We have 20 employees. We're doing all this stuff. Like, yeah, that sounds great, but also sounds overwhelming. I get that. But every micro improvement and every micro implementation, however we want to say this, that you do for your brand, it's going to matter. It's going to matter. So you need to educate yourself on what all these, like if what I'm saying to you right now is like, Andy, I've never heard of anything that you just said, you need to start educating yourself. I mean, that's a big pro. Here comes the shameless plug of being in one of my coaching programs. At least in my Anaconda program, you get access to my weekly Zoom Q&A call, the Q&A video library, Facebook group. Every week, I literally do this. I tell all my students on the call, here's what's new on Amazon. I literally have a section called Amazon News and Updates. And I share all the new features and tools. In fact, I have a really cool one that I'm going to share tomorrow with my students. So you need to educate yourself. You need to be aware of what all these different, tools and features and things are that you could be doing, and you need to be implementing them. And here's the thing. This is something that I personally need to get a lot better at. In order to implement all this and not be overwhelmed and not just feel like you're just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, you need to be extremely organized. You need to have a system. You need to have a schedule. You need to have a calendar. Because if you're just like flying by the seat of your pants every day, like, let's do a brand experiment today. And then like 2 weeks later, like, well, let's do a brand tailored promotion. Like that's no way to be consistent and see consistent results. And I get it. If you're by yourself, you're married, you got kids, you got no free time. I'm married. I got 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. My free time does not exist. My free time is at not even at 9. After my kids go to bed, I spend an hour and a half cleaning my house every night. And then it's 10:30 and then I go to bed because I wake up at 5:30 to go to the gym. So I do not have free time. I don't have free time. Like free time doesn't exist. Even with being my own boss, because I spend all my time working on my businesses as much as I can. At least I do spend a lot of time with my fam. But for those of you that are working, have kids, you understand this. Like free time, that was like when you were single. So with the limited time you do have, you got to find ways to be extremely efficient and organized. Because if you spend 10 minutes wondering what you're going to do that day, that's 10 minutes you could have been doing something actually moving the needle for your business. It's kind of like those of you who watch Netflix. Again, I don't watch Netflix. Who knows why I still pay for half these subscriptions, because I don't got time to watch Netflix. But for those of you who do watch Netflix, I'm sure you've done this before, where you're like, I'm going to watch a show, and you sit down and you scroll for 45 minutes through Netflix, can't quite decide what show you want to watch a few trailers, should I watch this? I want to watch this. Then you start a little bit of one, you're like, I'm not feeling it, and then you go and switch something else. Pretty soon it's been an hour and a half, and you have not watched anything. That's literally what people do with their business. They're like, oh, okay, I got 30 minutes, I'm gonna work on my business. And they sit down and they spend 30 minutes just like strategizing what they're gonna work on that day. And then pretty soon 30 minutes have passed, and have they actually done anything? No, but they've thought about what they're gonna do that day. Guys, I do this almost every day. where like, I'm like, okay, here's a bajillion things I need to be doing on my business. And I sit there and I list them all out. And then I'm like, oh, dang, time for lunch. And then I just spent an hour just listing out everything I need to do, but didn't actually do anything. So you need to get very, very efficient. You need to create a calendar. You need to create a schedule. You need to get organized, knowing exactly what you're going to do, how to do it. So you got to educate yourself. And then you need to plan, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a timer and do it for 5 minutes, and boom, execute. Next thing, boom, execute. Next thing, 10 minutes, boom, execute. And really have a system and schedule in place, knowing every Monday, every Tuesday, every Thursday and Friday, like whatever the days are, whatever the time is for every, implementation or test or tweak or management PPC, like have schedules and times and blocks. If you want to go time blocking of, this is what I'm going to do on these days at these times consistently. That, I promise you, is going to play a huge factor in your long-term success, instead of just going by the, well, if I got some free time, I'll work on my brand. Because you'll find 2-3 weeks roll by and you're like, dang, I haven't even checked my PPC one time in the last 3 weeks. No wonder why your ads don't do well. Versus, again, if you set up a time every week for 20 minutes and you just pounded through all the low performing campaigns, optimize those, boom, next week, check all the low performing campaigns, optimize those. Over time, yeah, they're going to get running well. And then instead of 20 minutes a week, you're doing 10 minutes a week. Then you're doing maybe once every other week, right? But you're never going to get to that once every other week efficiently if you're just randomly doing crap. So get organized, get consistent. That's going to make a huge difference. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Selling on Amazon with Andy Isom. We'll see you in the next episode.